Hi guys, welcome back to my channel once again. In this video, I'm going to be teaching how to sew this jumpsuit. I've already uploaded the working pattern, or I've uploaded a pattern already, so you can watch that before you watch the sewing videos. So let's get started. I'm going to be working on the front part first. So the first thing I'm going to be doing is to mark the wrong side of the fabric, and then I'm going to be using this interfacing on the side. I'm using a medium interfacing. Then I'll be marking 3 inches in. Make sure you press or iron the interfacing before you mark 3 inches in. I'm supposed to mark 1.5, but then because of the nature of the trouser, and then I added extra 1.5 seam allowance to the side. That is why I have 3 inches over there. So after marking the 3 inches, I'm going to be coming down by 7 inches. That's going to be the length of the pocket, and then I'm going to cut it a little bit just like this, about 1/4 inch. So I folded, or I'm cutting both trousers together. You can see I have all 2 there. After that, I'm going to be folding that 3 inches I marked in. You are folding the 3 inches in. So I'm going to be pressing it down so that it can lie down flat. So this is what I have after pressing it down. So I just marked the wrong side of the pocket as well, and then with wrong sides facing each other, I'm going to be sewing them together. So just open it up like this, and then stitch a little bit behind that line towards the side seam. So after sewing, this is what I have. Then I'm going to be stop stitching. So I'm going to stop stitch that part. After stop stitching, the next thing I'm going to be doing is to just flip the pocket to that side and then place this on top of it. I'm going to be marking the 3 inches I folded in for the pocket on the side. I'm going to be marking that 3 inches on the right side of the pocket, and then place it on top of it like this. So just make sure it's on top of that 3 inches line you just marked. And then I'm going to be pinning the upper part so that it doesn't move, and then I'll be stitching that part. I'll be turning it to the other side, and then I'll be stitching that part as well. So you're stitching to the part you make the cut. Remember, I made about 1/4 inch cut somewhere. That is where you are stitching to. So after stitching the pocket, I'm going to be placing the other part of the front on top of it, and then I'll be stitching the center part. So just stitch about 1/4 or 1/2 inch over there. After stitching, I'm going to open it up and then show you what I have. So this is what I have for the front part of the trouser. Next thing I'm going to be doing is to stitch the front part of the top. So I'm going to be stitching the dots. So after stitching the dots, what I'm going to be doing now is to work on the lining of the front. So I've fused the lining with a medium interfacing. That is what I'm going to be using. So this is the lining, and that is the interfacing I used. So I'm going to be placing it on top of it just like this. And then I'll be stitching 1/2 inch on the front, and then 1/2 inch on the neckline as well. After stitching, this is what I have. You can see I stitched the neckline and then the front part of the top. So at this point, I'm making notches or cutting through so that turning will be easy. So make sure you are cutting to the end, but then you are not cutting through the seam lines, otherwise you have to stitch again. So at this point, I'm going to turn it out and then press or iron to show you what I have. Yeah. So after pressing, you can see it's lying down flat. So it's advisable to press. Press it so it lies down flat. That is how you achieve this. So after pressing, I turned the upper part out, as you can see, and then I turned the lower part about ½ inch in, because that is how the design is. The black part have to show on the waistline as well, so that is why I turned about ½ inch in at the lower part. You can decide to make it 1 inch. You still have excess fabric to stitch. So this is what I have now. You remember I made a notch at the lower part to indicate the front part of the top. The center front part of the top. So I'm going to be placing the center part or the cut part at the center of the trouser. So that cut is what I'm talking about. It's going to be at the center front of the trouser. Let it be on the center front line and then pin. So this cut is going to be on the center front line. Make sure it is on the center front line and then pin, because that cut is at the center front. After that, I'm going to be pinning the sides together, and then I'll be placing the other part or the other side on top of it as well. The center front should meet before you pin everything down. You can see I took off the pin to make sure they are all on the same line before pinning again. So at this point, pin as much as you want. You can pin any other parts that will make sewing easy for you. So after pinning, I went ahead to stitch about ½ inch, and then you can trim off the excess fabric for the facing if you want to before you stitch. So after stitching, this is what I have. You can see that black line I was talking about at the center front. At the waistline of the front. The next thing I'm going to be doing is to stitch or join the upper part and then the lower part of the back together. Make sure the side seams are meeting. Ignore the center back if there is excess on the trouser. So you can see I stitched the side seams together, and then there is excess at the center front. Next thing I'm going to be doing is to fold it just like this, and then I'm going to be copying the darts to the trouser. So the length for the back dart of the trouser is 4.5 inches. So I'm going to be marking 4.5 inches down there, and then the width is already ½ inch for the front part of the top. So I'm going to be connecting that ½ inch line to the 4.5 I just marked, and then I'll be stitching it down. So after stitching, this is what I have. Next thing I'm going to be doing is to open it up, press it, and then join or add the other parts of the back to it. So I'm going to be placing it on top of it like this. Make sure the seam line of the waist are meeting. Make sure the waist lines are meeting. So I'm going to be stitching to somewhere in the middle, just so it sticks together. So I'm going to be stitching. Just make sure you stitch and then it's together, but you're not stitching to the waist. So this is what I have. Next thing I'm going to be doing is to work on the facing of the back. I've already cut out the facing. Then this is what I have. So the width of the facing is about 2.5 inches. Yeah, so 2.5 inches. You are going to be cutting from the center back to the shoulder. And then I stitched ½ inch out of it, so you can see I'm making notches at that part so that turning becomes easy. The next thing I'm going to be doing is to press it or iron it so that it will lie down flat. So I'm going to be doing that on both sides. And then I'll be joining it to the front after pressing. So this is what I have for the front. Next thing I'm going to be doing is to add or put in my side seam allowance. So whatever side seam allowance you added, make sure you've marked it down. I added 1.5 inches, and then you'll be connecting it to the hip line. Remember, we added only ½ inch to the hip line. So when adding or when marking the hip line, make sure it is just ½ inch you are connecting to. From the bust to the waist is 0.5 inches, but then any other allowance on the trouser is ½ inch. So when you get to the hip area, you are marking ½ inch in instead of 1.5 inches because we didn't add 1.5 inches to the hip or the trouser. So after marking, you just connect the lines together like I have done, and then I'll be adding or placing them together. So I just place the front on the back, then I'm going to be pinning it down. So I'm going to be pinning the side down just like this. Make sure the seam lines or the waist is meeting. That is where the beauty comes out. You don't have to sew and then one part of the waistline will be at the other side and then one on the other side as well. So I'm going to be pinning the lower part of the inseam area as well. So I'm pinning that part of the trouser. I pin the side and then the middle part, and then I'm going to be pinning the shoulder too as well, so that when I take it to the machine, I know I'm stitching every part of the jumpsuit. So make sure the seams are meeting and then pin them together. I mean the shoulder, and then pin them together before you stitch. Yeah, so I took it to the machine and then I've stitched every part, the shoulder, the side seam, the center or the middle part of the trouser. I've stitched every part of it. So this is what I have at the moment. So like I said, for the trouser, you are stitching ½ inch on every other part. Next thing I'm going to be doing is to join the center back together like this and then pin. I'm going to remeasure the waist so that I can fix my zip. So I'm going to be pinning that part down as well so that when I'm measuring, I know I'm getting an accurate measurement. So next thing I'm going to be doing is to remeasure the waist from the center front to the back and then mark. So wherever you mark is the excess fabric left for you to work on the back. So I'm going to be folding it in just like this and then press it down. Remember, I added 1 inch to the back for zip extension. So now I'm going to be connecting this together like this and then press it down. So measure the length of your zip before you make this part or before you work on this part. So I've pressed it down. This is what I have. Next thing I'm going to be doing is to fix my zip. Yeah, so after fixing my zip, this is what I have now. Next thing I'm going to be doing is to work on the shoulder. So I'm going to be folding the two together like this. And then depending on how much skin you want to show on the shoulder, you are going to measure in from the side and then cut out before you pipe or finish the armhole. So I'm going to be pinning it down like this, and then I'm going to be marking 1.5 inches in. You can go in about 2 inches or 3 inches depending on how you want the shoulder to be. So after marking the 1.5, I'll just connect it to the armhole just like this, and then I'm going to cut it out. After cutting out, I'm going to be using my bias tape to pipe or finish the armhole. So this is what I'm going to be using to finish the armhole. So after piping, this is what I have, and this is the end of the tutorials. I hope this was helpful. Don't forget to like, comment, and share my videos. Then see you another time. Bye.